Hi, this is Dana, and on this channel, I speak about spiritual warfare. In this video, God has guided me to speak at this point in time about failed relations. And when we say this, we refer to any relations, love relations, but also family relations, friends, co-workers, neighbors, whatever type of relations. Essentially, I want to make reference to failed relations, which basically means relations that have passed the point of no return because of what was done. Again, it is very important, especially when you talk about ascension. It's very important to understand we are living a specific time, namely the ascension, which when basically people should understand that when you do something, you cannot undo actions which you took. You cannot change some things which you do, you cannot change them. And this is very important to understand because it will define your position towards many things. And specifically here, I refer to things which I have been advocating for, namely, do not focus on forgiveness. This is a very wrong teaching, but focus on transmutation. So you should transmute all darkness that was sent to you, all the negativity from different type of relations, all harm that was done to you. You should transmute that. But transmuting, please check into my videos in which I explain how it works, how you do transmutation. Essentially, you do not focus on forgiveness. This is not something that you should be thinking or doing. Forgiveness comes from God, and that's all. Because forgiveness implies a very deep analyzing and judging a person, a situation, and so on, which more often, as humans, we are not always able to do. And God always has the ability to do that. However, humans don't really have the ability to understand deeply. They more often confuse forgiveness with different type of relations. You might confuse forgiveness with the ability to patch up relations and start over again. But that doesn't mean that you fully understood exactly what happened. Now, when we talk, so that's a wrong way to put it. It's just your desire to to try again the same relation, and you say you forgave someone, but then on energetic level, you simply don't really have the ability to actually give forgiveness to someone on human level. And this is not something that I invented. This is something that God has shown to me. And I explained in my prophetic writings and in my videos, when you give forgiveness, when you actually say that, when you give forgiveness, it means that you erase completely what was done. But as a human, you don't have the ability or capacity to erase. Why? Because some people have done to you work with darkness, which cannot be erased. Which means when you wrongly say that you forgive that person, what you actually do, you empower that darkness which was brought between the two of you by the other individual. So when you actually say you forgive an individual, please keep in mind that forgiveness, it is extended to the type of darkness and the forces from dark which were used, sent upon you, and conjured, summoned, and so on by that individual. So this is very important. I explained all of this. Now, if let's say that an individual has done harm on you, and they used a certain number of demons, of spirits, of whatever, let's say they did a sacrifice ritual on you, or they used different type of forces from the dark. Now, when you extend forgiveness to that individual, that means that you empower that darkness. You give power to that darkness. What you must keep in mind is that you're doing harm to that individual, because that individual must, in order to elevate, must fight off that darkness. And that darkness is attached to him because of whatever promises and offerings he made to that force of darkness. Now, transmuting all that darkness means that you cut off the connection between you and the darkness which was sent to you. This makes it easier for that individual to fight off the darkness. Why? Because when he summoned that darkness, he created a promise upon you. That means that darkness is feeding on you. If you cut the connection with the darkness, he's going to be able to work with God in order to fight off that dark force. If you extend forgiveness, that darkness continues to feed on you, and he cannot fight it off, because he already gave that power to that darkness, namely to feed on you. I don't know if you really understand. Imagine that when we say darkness, we think of a parasite, right? So that individual summoned and called upon a parasite to feed on you. When you give forgiveness, and this is something that God has shown me, when you give forgiveness, that parasite continues to feed on you. When you refuse forgiveness, but you focus on transmutation, you cut the connection between you and that force of darkness. That means that individual will be able to fight it off, because the darkness will slowly be starving and will weaken because it doesn't have a source of feeding, right? Now, if you keep the connection with that individual, again, that dark forces, that parasite will continue to feed on you. So, in many situations, the failed relations which reach a point of no return will basically be able to advance. I mean, in those relations, the best you can do is to essentially cut off connections between you and that individual, which means cutting connection between you and that force of darkness by transmutation, not by forgiveness. And I keep emphasizing this, not by forgiveness, by transmutation, because transmutation in itself, it's a connection because which you create to God. You cannot transmute by yourself. You can always transmute by working with God. That's the only way you can transmute. Transmutation happens when you send it to God, when you surrender something, someone, a situation, a relation to God, to the divine realm. This brings divine grace upon you, upon that situation, and upon the other individual, which means already that a sort of light from the divine realm will cut those strings. And this will make it easier for that individual who is guilty of creating that situation to fight it off, not by himself. He himself must go to God in order to fight that darkness. But you create the conditions for that individual to do that. So, and more often, the individuals who have created such situations and such relations are the ones who become addicted to you. Addiction is something from darkness. When you are addicted to an individual, that is not love. That is some kind of darkness which resides in you and is feeding from the other one. This is the basic explanation. And people who feel like they're addicted to someone, they need to understand this. It means that there is some sort of darkness which is feeding from that individual onto the other one. That is not from light. No connection, no relation which is in light should have any kind of type of addiction involved in it. And I will give you an example. God has shown me throughout my spiritual fighting, while I was fighting to break a bondage created by another individual, God has shown me the original creation of the bondage in a totally different light. So I was carrying on a specific embodiment which God gave me in order to break a situation. And because I needed to clear the ancestral healing, to do ancestral healing, to clear ancestral line. And God has shown me how that was created in previous life. Because always ancestral healing can be done only when you receive embodiment from the divine realm. It's clearly a bondage created in a different life, either by your soul or by somebody from your lineage. And in order to break that bondage, you must receive the embodiment. So I received that embodiment, and I was fighting to break the bondage. And God has shown me how that played out in a different lifetime, right? And it showed two individuals, a man and a woman. And basically the man has done lots of harm to that woman. It was actually during Nazi time, during Nazi regime. And that individual has done a lot of harm to that woman, including he lied upon her that she's a Jew in order to be arrested by the Nazis, imprisoned by the Nazis, tortured by the Nazis. Then he saved her from the prison, from the concentration camp, but he saved her only to control her or something like this, because he was very keen on being with her, and she rejected him always. She didn't want him. So he was capable, out of revenge on her, he was because she didn't want him, he was capable of basically selling her to the Nazi system in a concentration camp, from which he himself then saved her, only to sort of keep her under control. She refuses to stay with him even after all of this, or we should say precisely because he did all of this. And anyhow, basically they get into a fight, and he tries to kill her. He tries to kill her, literally, physically. She survives. She is saved by a doctor. She survives. And then she runs off with the doctor to the United States. Now, what the individual has done while he was trying to annihilate her, to kill her physically, basically a doctor was called to come and took her to the hospital to try to save her. And this individual declared her dead. So he talked to many others around him and decided to declare her dead in order to steal all her rights, to preclude her basically to go anywhere, not having documents, not having identity. He thought that this can force her to return to him. And he went so far that he created a burial, a real life burial with individuals whom, for money, they declared her dead as well. And they even created the burial, the physical burial ceremony. And there was, how do you say this? So there was basically, a cross and the place where he buried something which he declared to be her body, right? So for authorities, essentially, She was declared dead, and there was a place in a cemetery where basically her name was written on a cross saying that she's dead, right? And he, based on this, he stole all her inheritance, all her money, everything, you know. He thought by doing this, he's gonna force her to come back to him. She didn't. She left. She found a way to get a different identity, a fake identity, and she left. She went to the United States. Doesn't matter what she did afterwards. That's only my problem, my idea. I broke the bondage anyway. But what God has shown me, and God has shown me at that point in time, because I was during my spiritual journey, I was in Chile, and God has shown me how it played out, specifically to warn me that this is a very dangerous relations and bondage to break. So be careful how you play it out. Okay? So God has shown me that after all of this happened, that individual was still obsessed with her, and he was obsessed with her to that extent to which he was going to the cemetery daily to cry for her on that cross on which he wrote her name, and he pretended to bury her there. So although he knew she was not there, because he was the one who created all of this fake ceremony and all of this thing, basically he was going daily to cemetery just to cry for her because he was missing her and he wanted to be with her. So I asked God, I said, I don't understand, why is he going there to cry for her? Because he knows she's not there. And essentially God explained to me, that clearly he was possessed by some sort of, what God showed me was that he sold his soul to a dark entity, dark force, in order to have her. He could never have her. She didn't agree to marry him at any point in time. But he continued to claim her all his life. And he sold his soul to a certain type of force of darkness in order to get her. Not only one, actually, to many type of darkness. He sold his soul. So he couldn't recover from that. He just simply couldn't recover. He didn't put up the fight to recover from that. Therefore, he was always in some sort of addiction of her. He didn't fight that darkness. So what I want to show you from this part of the bondage which I was breaking at the time is the fact that there are individuals who go too far in working with darkness, simply just go too far. Now, if you stay in light and if you do your spiritual fighting, you will succeed to get rid of them. You will succeed to break whatever bondage they create. That woman in that lifetime was successful in breaking that bondage. Namely that she broke free from him. She went to the United States and she built a very beautiful life for herself. However, the fact that he buried her and the fact that he stole her inheritance remained as a bondage because she didn't return to Europe to deal with that. So this was the bondage that I was dealing with when this was revealed to me. If you're in light and if you work with God, you will succeed to break free from this. However, there are individuals who work with darkness to such an extent, they do so much harm, and they go so low, basically, that they will never recover. People must understand there is a point of no return in working with darkness. And of course, there's a different path, probably in a different incarnation, or somebody else from the same lineage which is pure, will be able to break the bondage created by that individual who's doing so much work with darkness. But in what pertains that particular individual who has done those works with darkness, there are points of no return when you work with darkness. People must understand this. This is no joke. When I keep insisting on saying, go do your redemption, this is very serious. I'm saying go do your redemption, because you're not going to have opportunities to do your redemption forever. Those are also opportunities, windows of opportunities which close up if you don't take them. You must understand this, that and those who actually create must understand with darkness, but also those who are on the other side, who are very easily extending forgiveness. By extending forgiveness, you just empower that darkness. You do not cut cords with the darkness which is feeding on you. And this is when God explained to me that woman left, and she, based on this very wrong, fake knowledge, gave forgiveness. So that individual was never able to fight against that darkness. And that darkness continued to feed on her wherever she went, even though she built a different life in a different continent and so on. So this is very serious matter. There are few issues related to this. Namely, I kept saying, claim justice, judgment, and punishment. This is important because God comes. And it's better for God to come and make justice, even through judgment and punishment, than to have a force from dark which has power and possession and claim over you. It's much better. This is for sure. For everyone involved, it's much better. So claim justice, judgment, and punishment. Do not give forgiveness. Focus on transmutation. I assume there are some relations which, of course, you can patch up, especially when, for example, there are two parents separated, that they have a child together and they have to co-parent or something. There are situations and situations, but you must understand what type of situation you deal with, and what will you be able to do together. Maybe you're going to just co-parent but not start again a relation. Maybe that is more detrimental to you. Maybe that will not actually help you in your spiritual path. And your spiritual path is what you have to give as most important inheritance for your child. This is important for everybody to reflect on it. And this is something that God asked me to talk about now. When I advocate for these concepts, I explained in another video that when I went through a surprise attack, God showed me specifically this was only possible because you gave undeserved forgiveness. I told you not to give undeserved forgiveness. I told you, focus on transmutation, claim justice if you want to fight this off. So I'm not advocating this just because I invented these terms. These are the guidance that I received myself from God himself, and I'm advocating because I have seen the results of it in my own life, and I was able to survive in really, really bad situations, and I was able actually to fight off a lot of harm and a lot of darkness which was thrown at me. And so I want to emphasize now at this point in time that in any situation, in any relation, there are certain points of no return. There are things which cannot be changed, and there is better off for everyone to do transmutation and just move on. There are more chances for all involved to succeed and evolve on ascension path than if you insist on clinging on a relation, trying to redefine it as a friendship. You cannot be friends with somebody who has sent Satan to you. You just can't. Here, everybody should make their own evaluation, and I would recommend make your evaluations requesting divine guidance. This is very important. And again, I emphasize the fact that right now we are at a specific time of ascension. So at this point in time, everything we do has a totally different relevance than the usual type of timing that we were used. Do not report yourself, because this is a tendency which people have to always look back and to think of it was so good back then. But I explained, up until recent years, there was a survival mode. After that, God decided to launch the ascension. Once the ascension was launched, you entered in a different phase, which you must understand. You function in a different phase in which there are specific rules of astral which are applied and have immediate consequence. So you must start understanding. People must start focusing on this, because it gains at this point in time too much relevance, so you can still ignore it. And again, I keep saying, transmutation is the best thing you can do in a relation with anyone who ever has done wrong to you. They should focus on redemption as long as they still have chances to do that. I explained very clearly, there are individuals who have went so far in working with darkness that not even God can help them until they actually realize how far they went, and they themselves decide to return to God. And in order to bring God into their life, meaning to give power to God to help them, they really have to right the wrongs they've done. You cannot deny the power you gave to a dark force unless you try to undo what you have done. Even if you cannot undo it completely, say you stole from somebody else, then of course if you give that back after 10 years, you're not going to undo all the years in which that person lacked what you stole from them. But you're going to deny the power you gave to the force of darkness which made you or helped you do this. Because you certainly did it out of greed, out of envy, out of jealousy, out of cowardness. Because many people do harm and they say, we did this for the job because we work for this and that institution which is asking us to do this and that. That's not true. And it's never an excuse which stands up in front of God. So all of this is darkness which is tricking you into doing bad stuff. That's all. Again, transmutation is what you can do best. Forget the idea of forgiveness, because you are not the one to give forgiveness. Only God and divine realm can give forgiveness, because only they know, first of all, what that individual has done, what are the consequences and ramifications in this lifetime, and what type of bondage or generational curse is behind that gesture. And if forgiveness can be extended in that situation. I was guided to talk about this, probably because there are individuals who still don't understand exactly how these concepts have an impact in their life. I hope I made it clear to everyone. Again, there are situations, failed relations, which are taken to the point of no return. And the wise thing to do is for everybody involved to understand when you reach this kind of situation, and for everyone to do their own part, namely the one who have been unjustly done wrong, to just transmute and move on, claim justice, judgment, and punishment, and move on. And for those who have created those situations and relations, to do the redemption, as long as they still have the chance to do it. And they must understand that that chance is not unlimited. Because as long as you don't do the redemption, you're going to sink lower and lower and lower in darkness. I'm going to end here because it's already half an hour. And I hope everything is clear. If not, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I wish you good luck and wisdom in the choices you make.